Hello, this is TJR. Recently, while visiting a local record store, I came across a used vinyl copy of Pictures at 11 by Robert Plant. Pictures at 11 was released 3 years after the release of Led Zeppelin's last album, In Through the Outdoor, and 2 years after the death of Led Zeppelin drummer John Bonham. And next year, in 2022, the album will be 40 years old. I had previously only owned this album on CD, and I still have the copy that I bought back in the 1980s. Listening to the album on vinyl for the first time gave me a chance to revisit and reassess this album with a new perspective. And today I want to share my views on the album with you. But first, if you want to see more videos like this, please click like, click subscribe, and smash the bell notification icon so you can know when I release new videos. Released in 1982, Pictures at 11 was the debut album by former Led Zeppelin vocalist Robert Plant as a solo artist. The album featured Genesis drummer Phil Collins and ex-Rainbow drummer Cozy Powell. It also featured a little-known guitarist named Robbie Blunt, who would end up co-writing all 8 of the album's tracks with Robert Plant. I can distinctly remember there being some press coverage out of this, referring to Blunt as Plant's new Jimmy Page, i.e. a co-collaborator versus just a sideman. Rounding out the band was session bassist Paul Martinez, who along with Plant has also worked with George Harrison, Peter Gabriel, and Cat Stevens, and keyboardist Jez Woodruff, and I hope I've said that correctly, who also did uncredited work for Black Sabbath, and who also helped co-write 3 of the album's tracks with Plant and Blunt. I was still a very young music fan at the time, and a fan of Led Zeppelin also, and yet I don't remember a whole lot of fanfare for this album prior to its release. It just suddenly seemed to be available, and rock radio stations were playing the track, Burning Down One Side, simply on name recognition alone. But I have to imagine that anticipation from music press and the music industry in general was very high for the first solo album by Led Zeppelin's former lead singer. Robert Christgau's review for The Village Voice came off as a weird, backhanded compliment, saying he was impressed by Plant's ability to recreate Led Zeppelin's aural sensibilities with duller musicians and catchier undertones, but ultimately found the music somewhat insignificant. Reviews like these were the reason I disregarded so much of rock music criticism during my youth, as it seemed that reviewers were more interested in being snarky in order to look hip than being able to recognize the obvious great musicianship that this album encompasses. Getting back to Pictures at 11, Robbie Blunt may not be Jimmy Page, but then again, he doesn't need to be. He has his own unique and equally enjoyable voice as a guitarist. The same can be said for Phil Collins and Cozy Powell. Neither is John Bonham, and neither needs to be. They are great players in their own right. They don't need to be John Bonham any more than Eric Clapton needs to be Eddie Van Halen. And while they may not be as famous as the previous names I've just mentioned, I also have to say the same for bassist Paul Martinez and keyboardist Jez Woodruff, both of whom are as musically strong as their more famous bandmates. Musicians like these are not dull, and neither is Pictures at 11. But I can see where it might have thrown off some Zeppelin fans who might have been expecting him to tread more familiar musical territory. Overall, Pictures at 11 is a very textural album, more subtle and less bombastic than Led Zeppelin, and yet it is probably the most Zeppelin-like of Plant's solo catalog. Songs like Burning Down One Side and Moonlight in Samosa really do feel like a continuation of In Through the Outdoor, and Slow Dancer feels like it could have been released on Physical Graffiti or Presence. I get a similar vibe from Mystery Title, but this time with cleaner guitar tones than Page might have employed on the same track. One aspect of Robbie Blunt's guitar tone that helps define the album's overall tone is his nearly complete dedication to clean or very near clean shimmering guitar tones. Within the context of an album, Jimmy Page was always more experimental and diverse in regards to what guitar tones he chose to use, and his exploration of musical light and shadow is just one of the many reasons why Led Zeppelin was so amazing. Blunt, however, keeps it consistent with mostly clean, chorus-driven tone with varying hints of guitar grit from track to track. But what his performance may lack in the realm of guitar sounds, he more than makes up for by employing some of the best clean guitar tones put to record. That and his outstanding chops, not to mention the ability to employ chord voicings that can make your ears melt. Something that I will add Jimmy Page was great at doing too. Robert Plant's vocals are also at their most Zeppelin-like of his solo career, as his approach to vocalizing will grow and change over the continuing decades. And while echoes of Zeppelin are everywhere on Pictures at 11, songs like Pledge Pin and Fat Lip are definitely appealing to a more 80s sensibility, a musical sensibility that actually began in the late 70s, but that's another video. On Pictures at 11, Robert Plant begins to look musically forward. And with the benefit of hindsight, we know he will never look back as he charts his own musical path. Led Zeppelin will always be in his musical DNA, but he will continue to explore new musical territory as both a songwriter, lyricist, and vocalist. The album has its barn burners, but there is still a very chill weekend attitude vibe to it that is very infectious. It certainly doesn't rival any albums by Plant's former band, nor does it have to, because it makes up for it in how positively smooth every single performance from each individual player is. There is so much great musicianship from everyone on this album, and they all make it look way too easy. At this time, I want to thank my Patreon supporters who are helping me make more videos. If you'd like to be a Patreon supporter, please go to patreon.com/TJR, the original. If you can't be a Patreon supporter, you can show your support by just clicking like and or sharing this video on your social media. Now it's time to hear what you have to say. Please share your thoughts on this album. I'm looking forward to reading what you have to say, and I want to thank everybody for watching. I hope you all stay safe and healthy. Take care. Bye-bye.